Hello, this is Professor Odom. I'm recording from my home office because I have a lot to say to you and I wanted to say it tonight. Um, it's my cat Ivy because I'm not sure how I'll be feeling tomorrow, so I wanted to just go ahead and do this. Say hi, Ivy. She woke up for you. I want to respond to your discussion board post about Gold et al. And Fulkerson. I also wanted to comment on how the peer review process went. I was nervous about not giving you adequate instructions or time to do that, but it turned out really well, I thought. And I'm done grading, almost done, grading your synthesis papers, and the grades will be uploaded soon, and I'll return your drafts to you. So I think I'd like to start on the discussion board post about the Gold et al. Reading and Fulkerson. Because y'all made some great comments that come up a lot, and a lot of you had the similar comments. A lot of people mentioned, what does back to basics mean, and that this is a kind of a conservative call that comes up every once in a while, maybe once every generation. Someone commented, does the pendulum swing back and forth when we decide that one thing doesn't work, or does every generation need to discover these former approaches? I think it's a bit of both. But I wanted to point out that when people in popular media and even education, but not college composition really, when they talk about back to basics, I think they often mean grammar, correctness, spelling, things like that for K through 12 students. But people in college composition research disagree with that view because they'll often say a basic understanding of audience, or understanding of what different goals in writing might be, or just the confidence to write anything at all, the belief that anyone is reading your writing. More general, sort of vaguer, harder to point to aspects of writing, they believe that those have to come first before students are even motivated, and motivation is one of those big things. Before students are even motivated to want to care about spelling and syntax, sentence construction, things like that. So a lot of people think that they all mean the same thing when they say back to basics, and of course you need to start at the basics, why wouldn't you? But there is a debate over what the basics means. A lot of people have also been surprised in a lot of the readings, including the ones that you're writing about in your synthesis papers, that writing is such a politically charged issue, and it's responded to politics and social issues. Even, you're just reading about the history of college composition, which, as you know, is not really that long in the grand scheme of education. But I think it has been so politically charged because of the development of democracies and the idea of universal education being a human right. Because when you expand the rights and the abilities of a wide, if not universal, group of people in a country, then that introduces lots of difficulties and change in priorities and change in methods that you didn't have to think about when only, the top 10 or 5% of young people attended elite universities, and people just didn't care about the others. Literacy wasn't a big priority until the last 100, 150 years or so. So, yes, it's political in the ways, writing and speech are the ways that we express opinions. It's the way that we communicate. It's fundamental for democracy. What I tell my junior level students, because we used to read a book that I love, Style, The Basics of Clarity and Grace by Joseph Williams. He has a beginning chapter about correctness and what that means and how it is a politically charged topic without seeming so. But what I tell my junior level students is that the two basic positions on language, if you think about language over time, is that you either think, it's good the way it is, it should stay the way it is, the way I was taught was the correct method or the correct group of words, change is bad. Or you can view it as change is good. Young people always change, professions change the language. It's just natural. It happens. We should embrace it. Other things like that. And so a stance of either change is good or change is bad, and it doesn't have to be 100% that way, but people generally have that stance if they really think about it. So that's a conservative or progressive stance on one topic, language. So, and then the other stuff, like what I was saying about the increased access to education and literacy, which is a democratic ideal, I think, makes us very wrapped up in politics. So I'm glad lots of y'all noticed that and that you're aware of it now if you weren't before. At least one person, more than one person, I think, in the discussion board posts asked, well, there have been all these methods of teaching composition. It's changed so much over time. People try new things. It seems, it changes often. But what is the best way? Why don't we figure out what the best way is, and let's just do that? I've had people pursue that question in their final papers, and it's just too big for a final paper because that's basically what the whole field of composition pedagogy scholarship is trying to find out, and that's just on the college level. That's not including K through 12. So you can't, well, for one thing, there's so many different groups of students and contexts, learners and teachers and methods and technologies, which I'll get back to in a second, that you can't say there's one way to rule them all and that we just need to scientifically figure out what that one way is and then we'll be set, because context changes all the time, needs of society change all the time. So that's why methods have to respond. So that's one reason why you've seen that pedagogies have changed a lot over time and are shaped by the society. And you've probably noticed too, education reform on the K through 12 level is perennially important on any politician's list of things to change. And so it's just something that people are always thinking about anew and dissatisfied with and trying to find better solutions for. But there is not one best way to teach composition. I wanted to point out, some people got this from the Fulkerson reading, and I think some people missed it or really concentrated more on the gold at all. My takeaway from the Fulkerson reading, and it's one that I love, even though I think it's overly simplistic, is the idea of value and modal confusion. And that's where, you write an assignment that is expressive and you say to students, just write, what write about your experience, write about how you reacted to something, and just express, your opinion or your experience. But then you grade it on a formal kind of rubric, and you mark off for, spelling errors and things like that. Or your readings are, very political and very argumentative. They're nonfiction, but then you don't have anything you don't have any readings to serve as models for the student's own writing. You ask them to write, academic essays or response essays or something like that are totally unlike the readings that they've been doing. And it seems clear to us that you would know what that different genre is and be able to just think about it and produce it. But if they haven't seen that and they don't see it in their readings for the class, then that can be really confusing. So I used his argument about that pedagogy should be thought through from the beginning to the end, and that you should start with this is also called backwards design. You may have heard that. Start with the goals of the class, the outcomes, the kinds of writing and other skills you want your students to be able to do by the time the class ends, and work backwards from that. So what assignments will allow you to show that the students can do those things? What readings do you need to support the assignments? What methods, what things do you need to practice week to week and day to day so that they can be ready for those assignments? That's how I design my classes. And my dissertation was about literature and composition, and some of you mentioned that as a topic, so we can talk about that if you're interested. So it was about, really thinking through why do people who have control over the readings, college instructors, they have control over the readings in their writing classes. Why is literature the kind of reading they need? And sometimes I think it's great if it's really, thought through well. But I realize a lot of you are high school teachers and you have to teach literature and composition. So maybe some things I've read or can point you to will be helpful for thinking about that. Okay, a lot of people talked about technology. That was its own section in the Gold et al. Reading. I wanted to point out that technology is not just, personal computers in the home or social media or phones. Technology technology has changed more quickly. I think we could agree in the last 20 years than it has before. But I remember reading Dracula and understanding that the use of the typewriter was, do I have that right? Typewriter? The use of the typewriter was a new technology that was sort of scary and weird. And so, like my dad typed out, actually my mom typed out my dad's thesis when he was in graduate school, and people didn't do that forever. That really changed how people wrote things down. You have the typewriter, you have cumbersome word processors, you have computers people can use at big institutions, then you have personal computers, then you have word processors that are easier to use and cheaper, and then you can expect students to be able to access those either at home or at school. And then you have phones and apps that people can, write long texts on. So it's just making the point that technology is not something that's affected writing classes for the past 10 or 20 years. It's affected them for as long as there have been writing classes. Just the kinds of, just print and literacy and those kinds of historical developments. Those were new technologies at some point too. Okay, so on to the peer review process. I'm so glad that y'all made it work in your small groups. There was some glitch where I wasn't able to get into or to take a look at groups 1 and 2, so I haven't given you credit for doing peer review yet, but I will put that in the gradebook. The glitch is fixed now. So I can just do a quick skim and see this person peer reviewed this person's paper, they got it done, check, check, check. So you don't need to go through attaching your peer reviews when you submit your papers anymore. I'm grateful to those of you who did it because it makes it really easy for me, but I can just take a quick look at the group discussion boards and check those off. And the papers I'm so happy with for the most part. Most people really got what a synthesis needs to do. And one person even commented, I was mostly doing summary, but my peer reviewer helped me see that I needed to do more synthesis, and that's awesome. You will use synthesis again throughout graduate school, but in this class for your bibliographic essay, because you will find the sources and you'll find many more of them about a topic of your choosing, and you will synthesize what those authors are saying in common or how they differ. I think the bibliographic essay assignment is up from last year. You can take a look at that, or if you want it, then I can give it to you. So keep that in your box of skills. And if you need to work on your paper, you need to do it over. You need to, you're not really sure the difference between what you did and what I was asking for. Let's definitely talk about that soon, so you don't get caught up in the assignments that are coming up, like your citation trail paper that will be coming up next. And let's just make sure that you know what I'm looking for in synthesis assignments, so that when you get to the bibliography, you're not trying to figure out the research and the skill of synthesis. Okay, so that's what I wanted to let everyone know about. I hope to be able to do at least one more of these short videos when I still have my hair. I've learned that I have been on a certain kind of chemo in a clinical trial since late December, but I have to change drugs, and one of the drugs I'm changing to will make my hair fall out or break off, is what it actually does. I've been through that before in graduate school, so it's it sucks, but I've lived through it before. It's better than the alternative. So I thought my hair looked good this evening, and I'm feeling good. So I wanted to do one of these when I'm feeling good, even though I'm not in my school office. Um, so that's what's coming up with me, and why I may not do more videos, or I'll be wearing a hat next time you see me. Something. Um, uh, oh yeah, I'll get the questions for the second half of writing across contexts up, and I'll be working on your looking at your reading questions and your discussion board posts for that after tonight. All right, I hope everyone is making it through the semester. Let me know if you're feeling really lost or overwhelmed. I don't want you to quit. I don't want you to drop out. I don't want you to feel frustrated and sad and scared and depressed and anxious. So let me know what I can do to help keep you going, because everyone needs a little grace and help once in a while. All right, I'll speak to you another time.